It is happening again. Following Ross Atkins, missing out on Juan Soto, missing out on Corbin Burns, Shohei Ohtani, and most recently, Roki Sasaki. New reports have dropped revealing some new Jays targets that they are actively pursuing. We're going to break down those new reports as well as discuss surprising piece of information surrounding Tanner Scott, who was just signed by the LA Dodgers. A ton to go over today, but ladies and gentlemen, before we get into it, quick reminder, if you're a part of that percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. About 70% of you who are watching aren't subscribed, and if you're enjoying the daily content, I know the Jays haven't made a move yet. I do think some moves are on the horizon, but either way, if you're enjoying the content, make sure to smash that subscribe button. But ladies and gentlemen, it's happening again. The Jays are linked to more players, and it is a surprising one today, and it is Carlos Estevez. So John Morosi tweeted just a little bit ago, Carlos Estevez free agent market is intensifying following the Tanner Scott and AJ Minter signings in recent days. The Blue Jays and Cubs, both of whom had interest in Tanner Scott, are among several teams pursuing Carlos Estevez. Now, there's a few things to dive over. We'll obviously dive into what this means for the Jays and kind of dive into Carlos Estevez himself, because this is the second or third time he's been linked to the Jays. Ben Smith also had an article linking them to him a few weeks ago and months ago at the start of the offseason. But ladies and gentlemen, the Jays, in surprising fashion, are linked to another player. And it seems like the Jays have been linked to every single player in the books, whether it's Roki Sasaki, whether it's Carlos Estevez, whether it's even AJ Minter, Tanner Scott. And Tanner Scott signed a deal earlier today with the, as you can see, pursuing season. Tanner Scott signed a deal 4 years, $72 million with the Dodgers, which is absurd. The Dodgers got another player. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Guess what? The Jays were in on Scott. It's crazy. Tough to compete with the Dodgers these days on the field or off the field. But guess what? The Jays were among teams in on Tanner Scott. And if I asked you to guess what team was in on Tanner Scott and you didn't know, you'd probably guess the Blue Jays because they're in on every single player. Now, jokes aside, it's kind of hilarious now. I mean, they're just throwing the Jays in there, in on every player, whether or not it was true. The reporters are having a laughing time with it. The Jays are the laughing stock of the MLB right now until they actually make some moves here. But I mean, at the end of the day, folks, the Jays were in on Tanner Scott. Now, Tanner Scott would have made a lot of sense for this Blue Jays team. They're in desperate need of a lefty. He got signed for 4 years, $72 million. And if they went out and got Tanner Scott, I mean, you're going the deepest, into your payroll as you possibly could, because I mean, $72 million is absolutely absurd for a reliever. But that being said, he was one of the best relievers. He was the best reliever available on the market. And he was a lefty, so it would have fit. But it's hilarious that's happening again where the Jays are linked to so many players. And this comes out, they're linked to Carlos Estevez, which is, we've heard this a few times now. But when you're talking about the actual player, and again, it is hashtag pursuing season because, Jays Twitter, Jays fan base, the Jays Nation here all of us Jays Nation have had a field day regarding who the Jays are involved in and interested in. And the Jays were, of course, interested in Tanner Scott. Now, Carlos Estevez, and Tanner Scott, but Carlos Estevez will surely cost a premium, especially after seeing Tanner Scott's deal. After already making a splash for Jeff Hoffman, I'd be shocked if the Jays made a serious play for Estevez, but it'd be quite the turnaround for the pen if they did. Now, the player Estevez himself is an extremely interesting case here because he's a very good reliever. He is a righty. He's an elite righty reliever. I mean, if you somehow manage to pull him off, and then you also get, of course, Anthony Santander and some of these other guys that they're still, actively negotiating with, I mean, it's a very good offseason. But your bullpen has a chance to go from the worst in baseball to one of the best in baseball. It already is a very good bullpen now, projected top 10 in baseball. And if you get Carlos Estevez, a elite reliever in this market, I don't mind the deal. I don't mind it at all. He's coming off an all-star season in 2023. Last year, put up a 2.1 WAR. Like Carlos Estevez, the player, is very solid. He is a very good reliever, and he's going to probably command a good amount of money. Now, it's going to be a bit less than Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott got 4 years, $72 million. But I mean, if the Jays are even remotely interested in Carlos Estevez, that means that they're definitely willing to, go way over their budget. And again, as Ben Smith has said, their projected payroll is $245 million. They've already pushed past the first CBT of $241 million, and they're within distance of striking the second, which is $261. If they're, even remotely pursuing or interested in a reliever, another high-end one at this point, they're going to absolutely fly through this $261 million. The belief is that they won't necessarily have to trade away current players to add free agents, and given the tier of free agents they're pursuing, it's clear they can exceed the second CBT threshold this year for the right players. They're probably, if all things go right, which is not going to happen, but if some things go right, they will, they'll maybe push towards $300 million. Now, Let me know down below. Do you want to see Carlos Estevez on the Blue Jays? Like, the joke aside about them pursuing everybody, they are pursuing Estevez. Is this a player you would want them to allocate any resources to make the bullpen even better? Because we know that they're pursuing high-level starters, high-level relievers, high-level outfielders, hitters. How about we actually get some pen to paper? I know I'm sick of it. We're all sick of the Jays pursuing these guys. And I do ultimately think the market, especially we're now less than a month away from, not spring training, but, camp opening up, or people reporting to camp. Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s date is February, I think 18th or something along those lines. Really, mid to late February. They got to extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for sure. But you need to also get these players locked in. Like, a lot of these markets are going to start picking up. I mean, let's not forget Alex Bregman is still on the market. Carlos Estevez is still on the market. We've seen 2 high-level relievers and AJ Minter go to the Mets and Tanner Scott go to the Dodgers in the last 24 hours, which means, in the last couple days, we've seen 2 high-level relievers go, which ultimately means I think there's a good chance that Carlos Estevez is one of the next dominoes to fall. The market's set. We know what it's going to take to get Carlos Estevez. And with Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s deadline, approaching, you have all these different guys. The Jays are in a lot of players. They're in Anthony Santander. Those talks have picked up. Ultimately, it's going to be interesting. And something I want to bring up from Chris Black, the teams at the bottom need to spend more. We understand that. A salary floor would really help, but LA's spending and manipulation of their CBT is equally problematic. And, in this video, we obviously talked about the Tanner Scott situation. Let me know also down below, do you think that the MLB should implement a salary cap and, a salary floor to help mitigate what the Dodgers are doing? I mean, they got Roki Sasaki. They got, they were in on Juan Soto somehow. Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani, Blake Snell. They required, Tyler Glasnow. They have all the Teoscar Hernandez is back with the Dodgers. Their team is an absolute juggernaut. Now, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, because some people are saying they're manipulating it, and they are doing some manipulation of the, tax and all these different things with deferred money. But at the end of the day, players want to go to the Dodgers because they're an established organization that keeps winning. The Blue Jays, on the other hand, are an established organization who keeps pursuing targets. And whether they're pursuing Anthony Santander, whether they're pursuing, Tanner Scott in hilarious fashion, Carlos Estevez, that's going to be the biggest question mark. But let me know down below again, do you want to see them pursue Carlos Estevez? I think it would be at the end of the day, if they get Carlos Estevez and they still get their bats, I love it, because he is an elite reliever. We need an elite bullpen. If they're going to sign Carlos Estevez in exchange, like in replacement of signing some bats, it's a disastrous offseason. You need offense, whether or not. You also need a starting pitcher. So the fact that they're in this is either they're completely delusional, which is possible, or they're willing to spend so much money that they can get another high-end reliever, high-end pitcher, and multiple bats. And that's both the scary and the optimistic side. I'm not going to say exciting, because the way that this team has been, spending and performing this offseason is nothing like exciting. And regarding, some of the money they saved from the Miles Straw trade in the international free agent market, they still haven't signed any of them yet, according to, the trackers and things like that. So ultimately, let me know down below what your thoughts are. The Jays are linked to more targets. No matter what happens, the Jays need to make moves, and we're going to keep you up to date with all the latest moves right here. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, uploading multiple times a day for you all. See your guys' support down below. So thank you for that. And also let me know, do you want to see Estevez in the Blue Jays? And are you surprised the Jays made a run at Tanner Scott? Thank you guys for watching. Cheers.